Here's the spirit of the law and the bill of what they were trying to do. They are trying to get you to keep 100% of your people on your payroll. They want you to keep everybody making 100% of what they made before February 15th.
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business, so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Francis.
Welcome back to another episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. I'm Dr. Pete Camiolo, and today I have a special guest with me, Dr. Nick Silveri. Dr. Nick, it's great to be together today.
Dude, great to see you, man.
It's great to see you and great to hear your voice. And we've been hearing a lot of Dr. Nick Silveri's voice and seeing a lot of his outfits on the Facebook, right? We've been seeing you, Nick, and just wanted to say as we kick off today's episode that I'm just so grateful for the voice that you are right now for chiropractors and helping us really wrap our heads around what's going on with the stimulus package. And this podcast episode is specifically dedicated to answering your questions. Dr. Nick's been getting your questions, and we've been getting them in our platforms with Remarkable Practice, Remarkable CEO. And so we decided that we wanted to do a podcast episode specifically on this subject matter. So, Dr. Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me here today. Both Dr. Stephen and I are extremely grateful. So as we kick it off today, for you, our listeners, we're going to go through a lot of information. Let's just put it that way. Nick has been studying this pretty much nonstop for weeks, and he has been just bringing it to us every single day over the last few weeks. So a couple of questions I know that we're going to be answering today that I know that you as a listener, you maybe have clarity on this already, but it can always help to be repeated. And 4 main questions I'm going to be asking Nick today. Number 1 is, am I eligible? And we're going to unpack that. Number 2 is, what will the lenders be looking for? Again, this is from you as the CEO of your business, as business owners. Number 3, how much can I borrow? The big question. And then the number 4 is, will this loan be forgiven? We know that these questions are questions that you have. We know these are the questions that the accountants are getting and the banks are getting, and all of the people like Nick who are experts in this area are getting. And so we're going to answer these questions for you, as well as other things as well, I'm confident. So, Nick, as we get started here, we know that there's been a $2 trillion stimulus bill that was approved. It's the largest economic bill in the United States history. And we know we have listeners that are not just in the U.S. We have a lot of docs in Australia and other places around the world. We are speaking directly to what's happening in the U.S., although other nations like Australia are responding to this. So get with your local accountant, get with your bank, get with those people, and stay abreast of this wherever you're at. But we're going to obviously drill down on what's going on in the United States right now, so how it affects our people here. So I know people are starving for accurate information on this stuff, Nick, and that's why we've got you on here. So first question, that I kind of put out there. Let's start with that one. Am I eligible? How do I know I am?
So before I get into that, I want to just explain, you called me an expert. I'm only an expert because I actually read the Senate bill. I'm just a chiropractor whose office is shut down right now. And I needed to find out what the deal was. And I was getting so frustrated because when they were talking about, because my obsession with politics and Twitter has finally paid off for something. But I was reading all these news reports and bullet points and tweets, and everybody was talking about the whole bill. And they just would say, oh, there's a bunch of money in there for small businesses. I'm like, okay, but what are the details for the small businesses? So finally, literally, I could not figure out what was in there. Senate bill passes on Wednesday night at 10 p.m. And I'm just I've never read a bill before. And I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to read the bill. So I read, there's 100 pages that really apply small businesses and chiropractors. So I just read the first 100 pages of this 880-page bill. And if you've never read a Senate bill, it is not a good time. But I read it, and then I'm on Thursday, I'm okay, now I know. I feel better about it. I know what's going on. And then I just decided I'd create content and I'd start shooting some videos about it. And people were just so hungry for this information. I felt have you ever seen that movie about, it's called Yesterday? It's where the guy this like lightning storm happens or like this surge of energy, and he's the only person in the world that remembers the Beatles.
No,
that's how I felt on Thursday. I felt like the guy in yesterday who was the only one who knew who the Beatles were. I'm like, I felt like I was the only one who knew what was in this bill, and I was just telling it to chiropractors, but no one else knew. Like dentists didn't know, so like chiropractors were just like, how do you know? I'm like, oh, I read the bill. So that's the only thing that makes me an expert. I don't want you to think that I'm like, I don't have like some business to like help you with the application. I'm just trying to like get the information out of my head into other people's heads.
Well, we appreciate that. And I'll tell you, that's 100 pages more of an expert than anybody else. Right. And so with that, that's a lot of information. But one of the things I love about what you've done, Nick, is you've summarized it so well. That's what I feel like you've done. I've been watching your lives, and if you guys haven't followed him, it's Dr. Nick Silveri. Go to his page. He's also an incredible marketer, and he can teach you a lot about marketing for your business. And we appreciate Nick for that. And by the way, Nick, this is not your first time as a guest on our show, is it?
I was the first interview on the Remarkable CEO podcast, and I'm now the first 2-time guest. So I'm very proud of those 2 trophies.
Yeah, man. We don't have any Remarkable CEO bling yet, but when we do, you've got to be one of the people with some of the merch. So
for sure,
coming.
For sure.
All right.
So let's get back to the questions.
So eligibility, that's a big one. Okay. Who's eligible? What does this look like? Let's dig in.
If you are listening to this and you are a chiropractor and you own your business, if you have employees, if you're a sole proprietor, if you're an independent contractor inside of someone else's business, all of those people will qualify for this. So to give kind of just a real high level, I'm sure everyone by this time will kind of know what the Paycheck Protection Program is, but basically it's the government is going to help you for 8 weeks, pay your payroll. They want you to keep your staff on your payroll and not have them go to unemployment. Number one, I don't think they want the unemployment number to go high. And number 2, I think they want businesses to be able to keep their teams together. So that's what this was really done for. And you will be able to get the money from the government to basically make your payroll and then a little bit extra for basically going through the struggle of passing the money on to your staff.
Awesome. So now we know, who qualifies for this. And so, we start to dig a little bit deeper and, we started asking, okay, that sounds great, Nick. I'm really excited about this, but what do they need from me? So what are the lenders we're going to be looking for? If I come in as a business owner, I'm coming in, what do I need to be preparing for now?
So here's what the correct answer is. It is your payroll costs from the 12 months prior to the date of the loan. So when you go in for the application, what you're going to need is your 12 months of payroll costs, which is going to include anything that you have given to employees as pay, whether that's benefits, actual money, severance packages. If somebody quit and you had to pay them for time off that they hadn't used, just anything that you've spent in dollars that you could argue went towards payroll. This includes retirement benefits if you have like a 401k or anything through your practice. So make sure that you just bring everything possible for payroll costs, because I think that's what is going to determine how much you qualify for, which is going to be 2.5 times what your average monthly payroll cost is, right? But here's the kicker, right? The only things that the bill itself say that you have to prove are that you promise you'll use the money towards keeping people on payroll, that you've been in business for since before February 15, 2020, and that you were paying yourself, like you run your own business and you were either paying yourself or other people on February 15, 2020. And then you have the payroll costs where they'll determine what your average monthly was. But the local banks are going to be the ones that are determining this. And if you've ever been to like a small town bank, they don't always know all the nuances of everything that might be going on. So there are things out there that say, oh, it's going to be your average of the last 12 months of all of the covered categories, which includes payroll, rent, utilities, mortgage on your interest, your interest on your mortgage payment, your interest on your business loans, and healthcare premiums. So it's possible that you might get to be able to get approved for more than that. So I would come in ready with any documentation that shows your payroll costs plus any other covered categories And I would also come in with what you would normally need for an SBA loan, which would be your 2017, 2018, 2019 personal and business taxes, your accounts receivables aging report, and your personal financial statement along with your 2020 year-to-date numbers. The only reason I say to bring those is because if you get there and you're filling out the application and you're talking to the banker and they say, well, we need your business taxes. And you're like, no, it doesn't say that in the bill. They're like, well, sorry, we need it. It doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong. What matters right now is time. So get all that stuff together because the money won't be available to the banks until probably later this week. So use the time right now, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, to get that stuff together. Make an appointment if you haven't already with your banker on Friday, phone call, Zoom, whatever. Just get on their schedule so that hopefully the bank will have the money on Friday. You can get in front of them, but have all that stuff ready that you're like prepared to give them whatever they could possibly ask for.
Yeah, this is incredibly helpful. So what I'm gathering from you is the best thing we could be doing right now is, if you're listening to this episode and it's middle of the week, we're talking, this is end of March, beginning of April. So by the end of this week, first week of April, you could be receiving the money is basically what you're saying. So in order to get this ready, we need to be doing and gathering all of our reports. So I know not everyone has probably done their returns for 2019.
If you don't have your returns for 2019, bring your profit and loss statement from your QuickBooks. I don't even think you're going to need it, but just get it together. Because here's another thing. Even if they don't need it for this loan, if there are local city loans, if there are state loans, if there are county loans or grants, they might want this information. This is all the information that you could possibly need for a loan. Have it in a folder. Just be ready with it in case you need it.
So, Nick, and this is, again, just a little off, but is there a timeline where you have a window of opportunity for this? In other words, let's say a doc's listening to this, and does it have to be done by the end of April, middle of April? Like, is there an
end
actual...
of June?
It's the end of June. So this is all done. Obviously, time is of the essence. I mean, as we're listening to this, people are wondering how they're going to pay their people. I mean, we'll get into some of these other questions, but you have time till the end of June, you said. It's okay. Helpful.
Yeah, but here's once you get the loan, you have 8 weeks to spend it. But you can wait until the end of June to apply for the loan. So you could apply for the loan on June 29th, get the loan, and I believe you would have 8 weeks from that point to use it, or you could retroactively use it for things you'd already spent money on. But here's my argument for why you need to move fast. There is a set amount of money in this bill, $349 billion, that is going towards this program in particular. I have no idea what the private payroll of companies under 500 people across the country, because everyone's going to take advantage of this. Every single business with under 500 employees is going to do this. That also includes these chain restaurants that have tens of thousands of employees. It's basically if you have less than 500 employees per location, you qualify for this as a small business. These companies that have 10,000 employees that are spread out around the country is not exactly a small business in my mind, but by definition it is. So they're going to gobble up. I can promise you they're going to be first in line. So you want to make sure that you don't try to get cute and be like, well, I could probably wait till June 29th because Nick said I could. I would do it right now. I would get it because who knows? If you get it the first day that it's available and you go 8 weeks and at the end of 8 weeks, stuff is still screwed up, the government might come in and say, you know what? We'll give you another 4 weeks. Or they might say after all the money's gone in 2 months, end of May, they might just be like, well, that wasn't a good idea. That wasn't a good use of money. So we're not going to do that anymore. If you didn't get it already, you're out of luck. So I wouldn't wait.
All right. Well, I think we hear what you're saying, Nick. We're going to take action. So one big takeaway as you're listening to this is get your ducks in a row and connect with your bank, give them a call, and also your accountant. Get the help that you need from your CPA, your accountant. They'll help you gather all these things, all this documentation that you're going to need. So you already talked about this, Nick. You talked about the 2.5 times. Can we unpack that just a little bit? How much can I borrow? And then there's some specific questions within that I'd like to ask. But Can you just unpack like how that actually works? Because I've heard, the dates, February 15th, and I've heard June 15th, and I've heard this number 8 weeks, but obviously that's more than 8 weeks. So can you just talk through, and then I've heard the 12 months, the previous 12 months from February to February, 19 to 20. Yeah. Just how much can I borrow, and how are they making that happen?
So I've read so many things, and I've talked about so many things over the last few days that now I'm starting to like get my dates kind of mixed up a little bit. But what I've been doing for the last 4 days, this is Sunday, so like Thursday to Sunday, and I'll keep doing it, is I just keep making these very specific videos about specific situations of questions that I get from people. So if you want to really meet, like sometimes I'll go 20 minutes on this very minuscule thing because it's confusing. And so go to my Dr. Nick Silveri page. There's like 30 plus videos that go into very specific things. But the general gist of this is the way that you will determine how much you can apply for is, if I would assume that most people who are listening to this have been in practice over a year. If you've been in practice over a year, it's 12 months prior to the day that you like apply for the loan. So if you apply for the loan, let's just say on April 1st, which you wouldn't be able to on that date, but if you could, April 1st, it's going to take you from April 1st, 2019 to March 31st of 2020. They're going to, all your payroll costs for that 12 months, you'll be able to divide that and get your average monthly like payroll cost. Then they will take that number and they'll multiply it by 2.5. So this is why I said earlier, just have all the stuff available, because the more you can qualify for, if the banker screws up and tells you that you can include your rent in that, have your rent checks ready so that you can show that to them, because what they approve for you, that's on them, not on you. So if you can get approved for more, get approved for more. What you're going to have to be really particular with is you got to make sure that you're documenting everything that you spend the money on to be able to qualify for the loan forgiveness. So if your average monthly payroll is $20,000, and that's the number that they come up with, it would be 2.5 of that number, which would be $50,000. And that also includes your salary, and it includes up to $100,000 for any individual person. So if you've got an associate that makes $200,000 a year, or if you pay yourself $150,000, you're only going to qualify for that first $100,000. They'll only calculate that. So anything above that, it won't go into the calculation.
Got it. Okay. So that was one of my questions was, so a lot of owners, take distributions, but they're not on payroll. So how does it work in that case? I mean, are you able, because obviously we report distributions, and pay taxes on that. So how does that, over the last 12 months, if I go back through my history, obviously that's being reported. So how does that fall into this?
The language is not super clear on that, but it does make mention of, you not only will be able to use your, I'll use myself as an example. I pay myself $500 a week, $26,000 a year for my paycheck from my practice. But then I get a K1 of the profit that's in the business at the end, because I'm an S corp, that I use in my personal tax return. So here's the way I think that it's going to work: is that any of those federal documents, Schedule C's, 1099s, W-2s, maybe even personal tax returns, if you claimed it to the federal government as income, I think that they're probably going to let you prove using that stuff. That I can't guarantee it. It may just go off of the W-2, like whatever you pay yourself through the payroll, but bring everything. Like I said, this local bank is going to be making the decision. So bring as much as possible and just, argue your case.
Yeah. Super helpful. Nick, when you're working with business owners like I am, and I know that you are as well. One of the things that a lot of them have done, right away as this was coming, they were kind of letting people go. They were either dropping people down to part-time. They laid some people off. People were, filing for unemployment. I mean, there's all sorts of different steps and stages that, people have walked through. So can you just talk a little bit about that situation? So I'm a business owner, and, I used to have, let's call it 10 people on staff and on payroll. Right now I'm down to just, me and like 2 other people, and the rest of the people are either less than half time or they're laid off temporarily. Whatever the situation might be. Can you talk to that and how do we navigate through that?
Yeah. So I've done 2 Facebook Lives. I just did one tonight and yesterday, and they were both 90 minutes long and just like lots of very specific situations. And what all of these boil down to is everybody's got their own like story of like, my massage therapist can't, the state won't let massage happen. So what do I do with them? I laid somebody off. They're sitting at home. They already filed for unemployment. Here's the spirit of the law and the bill of what they were trying to do. They are trying to get you to keep 100% of your people on your payroll. They want you to keep everybody making 100% of what they made before February 15th. Continue that. If you do that, if you get everybody back, if they've already filed for unemployment, you can invite them back. If you send them home because they only get paid when they do a massage, and bring them back. If you have 100% of the people head count back on your payroll and you're paying 100%, at the end, and we'll talk about the forgiveness in a minute, but at the end, you will get that money forgiven. They'll give you the loan because it is a loan. They'll give you the loan, and as long as you spend it on those people for payroll, you'll get that money forgiven at the end of this loan. The thing that I really want to make sure that people understand is that if you try to like game this system, if you try to get cute with it, what may end up happening is at the end, you may just not do it quite right, or you'll miss some little nuance and you won't get the loan money forgiven like you should have if you just brought them back. Because the government does not want them on unemployment. The state doesn't want them on unemployment. They don't want to be on unemployment. You don't want them on unemployment. And here's another reason why you don't want them to go into unemployment is because in this bill, the government added $600 a week on top of what the state pays their normal unemployment, right? So let's say somebody makes, they make $4,000 a month, okay? On normal unemployment, they would get like 50%, 60%, but let's just call it 50% for easy numbers. Normally they make $4,000 a month. Now they're going to make $2,000 a month if they get laid off and they go on unemployment normally. But now the government's coming in and they're dropping another $600 a week on top of it. And if that ends up being more than what they even made working for you, I don't think there's any rule against that. They could be making 107% to sit at home and not have to be on your Zoom calls every day. So, pour into your team, love on your team, keep your team on board, because if you don't, you risk that they won't come back, and then that might hurt your headcount number and it might hurt your overall payroll number. And I'm not 100% sure how that's going to affect your loan forgiveness. So the best way to get this forgiven 100% is to bring 100% of your employees back on, 100% of pay, do it the first 8 weeks it's possible, and move on from there.
We'll be back to my conversation right after this. Hey, Doc, we've got great news for you. The Remarkable Attraction Immersion, originally planned for Chicago April 3rd and 4th, is now happening online. In response to the COVID-19 coronavirus situation and ensuing restrictions on travel, hotels, gatherings, and restaurants, we are moving the awesome Remarkable Attraction Immersion online, live, and virtual. We know that you are facing uncertainty. We know that your patients are scared and confused. Some patients are missing appointments, some dropping out of care, and some of you are locked out of your practices, period. We are here to help. This virtual immersion is designed to address these immediate concerns and more. We're going to share with you a 3-phase action plan that will help stop the bleeding right now, then get patients back on track. Then it will be time to mobilize and get you back out into the community. We're facing an unprecedented situation and opportunity in chiropractic. Now is a time. We have a window in time where we as chiropractors will have everyone's attention. We have created an awesome event, highly relevant, addressing the concerns, questions, and needs that you and your team are facing right now. And we also know that this too will pass, and we're going to get you ready to step into the gap and be prepared and ready to seize the opportunity that you will be facing in your community over the next few months. The same awesome TRP coaches will follow the same Remarkable Practice live event program schedule. Get your team together at your office or home or offsite and hunker down for a value-packed weekend of training. You will be ready to take action immediately, even if your practice is closed. Join us for this incredible virtual live event. Roberto Monaco is coming alongside all the TRP coaches to teach this seminar through the weekend. If you don't know who Roberto is, he's the premier undisputed heavyweight champ of influential and persuasive speaking in chiropractic. We have a program in place so that you're fully equipped to have the answers. Register now for the virtual live event and save over 65%. To grab this special deal, go to www.theremarkablepractice.com/events. That's www.theremarkablepractice.com/events. Do not pass up on this deal because it ends April 3rd. Grab your team and we'll see you online. And now back to my conversation. Yeah, I mean, this goes back to Nick, some CEO talk. So, you might be thinking to yourself, well, we're not open, or we're open, but we're we've taken our hours down dramatically.
Yeah.
And we're just seeing emergency cases or things like that because we're an essential. So what do I do with these people? Guys, here's the deal. So this is a CEO moment, right? So this is a CEO moment. As a CEO of your business, your job is to marshal the energy of your team by, harnessing the limited resource that you have of your team, their energy and their focus and their time. And so this is where we have to set priorities for what's important now and what's important next. And now is the time to get ahead. Right now, we need to be thinking about what's coming when this settles down. What are we going to be doing to be moving our companies forward? How are we going to grow as a result of this? Right? How is this going to be something that's going to propel your business forward? And so we need to be thinking as CEOs and be thinking about what would be the highest and best use of my team's time right now. Yeah. And so be thinking through this, as you're making this decision, let's say bringing people, how are we going to be working? How are they going to work remotely? How are they going to be working virtually? Listen, if you've got questions about that, talk to, give me a ring, give Dr. Steven a call, go into our Facebook forums and start asking questions to our coaches. We're here to help you out. We want to help you make sure that you and your team and everybody makes it through this. This is big for us in chiropractic, Nick. I know that you know that it is. I mean, until this was coming and really, maybe people didn't have any visibility into this because they don't pay attention to it. Yeah. But, there were a lot of people that were kind of freaking out, and for a lot of, probably very good reasons. But so this has definitely been a positive for us. I think as small business owners, this has been a huge win, but we've got to be really smart. We still have to function as CEOs, chief energy officer. It's about your energy, the energy of your people. It's about leadership. Now is the time to step up as a leader of your business and lead the charge. And so, Nick, I don't know if you have anything to speak to about that, but this is a really important time for CEOs to step up and really be the leader of the organization that's needed right now when it comes to really pouring into your team, like you said, and teaching them, how they could be most effectively used at this time, even if it's in new ways than what they're used to. So I think this is also going to expose you a lot more about who's on your team. Are they A players, right? Are these the right people? And I hope that we all have the right people. But this is going to expose that. I think times of crisis expose, it squeezes people. And then, what really comes out is what people are made of, And so I think this is going to be really tough. But Nick, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or even just from your own experience working with your own employees, your own businesses on that subject.
Well, I'll say this as one of the things that you could be doing in this break. So this, what I'm doing right now, this me being some type of quote unquote expert for the Paycheck Protection Program it's a masterclass case study in content marketing. This has nothing to do with my core business. I run a content marketing agency for chiropractors and a chiropractic office. Those are the two things I do. This has nothing to do with my core business, but my ideal clients are hungry for this information. So I've spent the last 4 days of my life just with lots of other chaos going on in my other businesses that I need to be focused on. And so I'm having to basically do 3 different things instead of 2 different things. But what is this doing? This is getting me so much exposure. I'm getting so much goodwill from people that I haven't heard from in a while, people that have never heard of me before. Now, all of a sudden, I've went from 550 likes on my Dr. Nick page to over 1,000 over the course of 3 days. And it's because I'm delivering value. So This is such a great time for you to be pouring into your ideal patients. What is it that they need right now? How could you and your team be creating content that would give them some hope right now. Because there's a lot of people that are pretty down about like what's going on right now. You could be a ray of sunshine for these people the way I've been able to be a ray of sunshine for offices out there that didn't know what they should be doing. Right. So just as like the thing I do, the content marketing side of it, this is such a great opportunity because people always complain about they don't have time. They don't know what to talk about. I mean, God, there's so much stuff to talk about now when it comes to health. So yeah, I'm with you. Like have a plan. I'm having a team, like a State of the Union on Monday. I'm going to give them some guidance on what I'm doing in terms of like payroll. Cause I'm sure they're wondering, because I've been pretty busy this last week and I haven't been as in communication with my staff, not half of which, 3/4 of which are at home right now doing nothing. So they're probably wondering like, am I going to keep getting paid? So I have to like make sure that tomorrow I've got a plan for them. We're going to be doing this together. And so training right now on all the TRP stuff, all the Remarkable CEO stuff, you're about to have unlimited time if you don't already. So you've got lots of time to do a lot of stuff. And the government, I finally kind of came up with this way that makes sense to me on this PPP stuff. You are just the middleman. The government's trying to pay your employees. So the reason why they're doing 2.5 instead of 2, if they just wanted you to pay your payroll, they would just give you 2. But what they're doing, I think, is they're saying, listen, instead of the unemployment office getting inundated and them having to administer this money, we're just going to give it to the business owners. The business owners can give it to their employees. So you're just the conduit that this money flows through. And then they give you that 0.5 to help you out with like your rent and utilities for having to deal with the headache of this.
Yeah, it's incredibly helpful. And I appreciate you unpacking this and all the work that you put in, and also just that coaching there. One of the things that I've been talking to my clients about is the same thing, because, Nick, I greatly appreciate you for your expertise as a content marketer, the story branding, certifications that you have, and just how you help, so many doctors, with their presence online and becoming that expert and that authority in their community. This is about long game stuff, team. As you're listening to this, people are going to remember. They're going to remember how you were right now. And so, Nick, I think you just really hit it. And we weren't planning on going down this path necessarily, but one of the things that I charged to my clients was I said, listen, I'm going to challenge you, Nick. I remember you did a 30-day challenge. I said, I want you to do a 10-day challenge, go live every day for 10 days. And I gave them a 10-day topics. I sent them, here are 10 topics. I literally bulleted it out like these are 5 talk points per topic. Just go live every day and just do, or not, but do your own. But here's an example of something that I just put together. If I'm in practice and I'm going to speak to my community and I want to stay really just positive and just good information, I'm not trying to, because the big thing right now with chiropractors is do not market that you can help people with their immune system right now. Like it is no go. Like if put out anything that talks about immunity and an adjustment, they'll shut you down, so now is not the time, even though many of us who are principled chiropractors, we actually understand physiology and how this works. It's like, actually, we've been taught through science that, there's a connection, but now is not the time to talk about that.
Like it doesn't matter. Yeah.
So just be giving this good information. So as you're listening to Nick, while you're getting all your ducks in a row and going to your bank, also be going live and also be putting together your content calendar for May and June. So start thinking ahead, like, what are you going to be doing? Even if you have to take your in-office workshops and go virtual and be doing webinars, hey, study up on webinars. What do you need to be doing to do that? Like, how do you do sales online? Like, how do you get people to opt into your, whatever the thing is, maybe coming in for a new patient visitor special you're running, or buying some sort of a product that you sell in your office, but they can buy it virtually. Like, there are so many things that we could be doing right now as far as the highest and best use of your time to continue to grow your business, but be the authority. People will remember how you make them feel, and they'll remember especially how you lead during this time. Everyone's paying attention right now, right? Yeah. So it's hyper vigilant time for everybody. Everybody's in a sympathetic state right now. They're up. And so being that person that does that. So I encourage you, because again, we've got a marketer. Nick and I could just do a whole show on marketing right now. We don't have to talk about COVID, right? We could just be doing marketing conversation, but we're doing this because this is what we talk about in CEOs. What's important now, right now, this is what's important, but so is marketing. All right, Nick. So let's talk about forgiveness. So the fourth question I had for you was, will the loan be forgiven, or how will it be forgiven, or when? Like, what are all the kind of questions? I know you've been getting about this, but about the forgiveness of this loan.
Okay. So let's forget about like all that complicated part on like how are we gonna quantify how much you get? Let's say you get $50,000. You had $20,000 average monthly payroll. You get approved for $50,000. They put $50,000 in your bank. If you use that money for one of these covered categories, that will be able to be forgiven. Depending on how much you continue to pay your staff and how many people you continue to pay. So you have to use them on these covered categories. The payroll costs, meaning like how much are you paying your staff? If you do any health insurance premiums, that's included. Rent, utilities, mortgage on your interest on your mortgage if you have a commercial building, and interest on any business loans, which I believe would work for like leases if you had leases on equipment. So that is those are the categories. So as long as you use the money within those categories, you'll be fine as long as you keep the same head count in terms of the number of full-time employees. So you can't cut your employees in half and then get loan forgiveness. If you cut your employees in half, and then you go for loan forgiveness, they'll cut the loan forgiveness in half. So that's why I'm saying your best bet is to bring 100% people back at 100% of their pay. You can decrease individual employees down to 75% of what they make. Now, some people have been thinking that you can take that $20,000 and just drop it down to 15 and maybe pay Susan 100% and Mary 50%, and it averages out to 75. That's not the case. The way that I was reading it today is it's based on individual employees. So you can't drop any individual employee down below 75% of what they were making before. But again, I don't even think I would mess with that, because again, this isn't even really your money. It's just like, because if it wasn't for this program, you'd probably just lay off anybody that isn't working and they would go get unemployment. So the government is just giving you this money to keep them on at 100%. That's the safest way that you can make sure. So keep the head count, keep the payroll amount, and then use it for the covered categories that we just talked about. You do those three things. They gave you the $50,000 in the loan, and you have to do it within 8 weeks. They give you the $50,000, you use it, you follow all those rules. At the end, you will apply for the forgiveness. And within 60 days of you applying for the forgiveness, they have to give you a decision. And as long as you can, and you also need to make sure you can prove it. Like have canceled checks, have your bank statements ready. So you got to prove that you spent every dollar on one of these covered categories. As long as you do that and the other two things, you'll get that forgiven 100%. And some people have been asking, well, does it go against your taxes as income for 2020? It does not. It's specific in the language that it is not taxable income.
You know, Nick, and I know we don't have a ton of more time, and I want to respect your time and everyone who's listening here. But, just a couple of things that have come up. The differentiation between the Paycheck Protection Program, the disaster loan, and the tax credit. So when you think of those different categories, Nick, and I know that's almost a can of worms, and I want to put you in a tough spot here, but can you maybe just summarize the difference between that? If I'm the CEO on the other side, okay, I've got maybe 1 or 3 practices, and I've got between 5 and let's say 18 employees and stuff like that. So what do you say to me? What's the difference? And do you have any guidance in what I should be focusing on right now?
Yeah, the tax credits, I'm not super expertise on that because it didn't really relate to what I was doing in my own practice. So I didn't spend as much time on that. The one thing I will say about the tax credits is I think it's called like employee retention credit. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep people on the payroll through the end of the year, beyond the 8 weeks, through the end of the year. And they'll give you a 50% tax credit of anybody that you keep on up to like a certain amount. It might be $5,000 per employee per month, but I don't quote me on that. The problem with that is in the language, if you take advantage of that tax credit, you may not qualify for the Paycheck Protection Program, which I think is the most generous thing right now. And it's the best thing for what most chiropractors need right now. So I would not worry about the tax credits right now. If you know more about the tax credits than I do, and you're like, no, it's going to work for me, fine, whatever you got to do, but I'm not an expert in that. So the difference between the disaster loan and one quick question, one quick caveat before I move on to this. When I said that you may not get the full loan forgiveness, let's say you only get 90% of the loan forgiven, the 10%, it's okay. It'll just turn into a loan that is up to 4% interest. Like the most you can pay is 4% interest on that for the Paycheck Protection Program, and up to a 10-year repayment term. So it's very generous terms. So I wouldn't worry too much if you didn't get it forgiven. So the disaster loan is something that has existed for a long time. When tornadoes hit towns or Florida gets wiped out by a hurricane, that is what these are in place for. Normally, they usually have a little bit stricter guidelines than what they've relaxed some of the guidelines, but the disaster loan is something that you could potentially be rejected for. Like if your credit sucks, if you have a bankruptcy, like those are things that could potentially make you not be able to get the disaster loan. The Paycheck Protection Program is this new thing. They just like came up with it out of thin air. So they're having to create the application process and the infrastructure for it right now. Like they're building the plane as they're flying it, right? There is some debate on whether you can get the disaster loan and the PPP loan, or if you have to pick between one or the other. The way that I read it is that they do not want you getting the disaster loan for the same things that you're going to use the PPP loan for. So the way that I think that it will work, and this is my opinion, maybe I turn out to be wrong, but I think I'm right, is that if you get the PPP loan, it's for those covered categories. If you get the disaster loan, I think you'll be able to get both, because the disaster loan is just a straight loan. They're not going to forgive it. The disaster loan should just be used for anything outside of those covered categories. Okay, so anything that is covered by the PPP loan, don't use the disaster loan money for that. One other quick thing about the disaster loan, they have this thing called the disaster loan grants. So what it is when you apply for the disaster loan, you can ask for up to $10,000 as an advance. That advance, even if you don't get the loan, if you get denied, you don't have to pay back the 10 grand. Okay, and if you get the loan, I'm not 100% sure if you have to pay back the 10 grand or not, but you may not have to, right? If they give you a $10,000 grant through the disaster loan, and then you get the PPP loan and you get loan forgiveness for, say, the full $50,000, they will subtract the $10,000 out of that $50,000. They're not going to give you free money twice. So that's the part that I want you guys to be clear on. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to get the disaster loan and the PPP loan together. Just don't use them for the same reasons, because that's the language in the bill, is that it's not to be used for the same categories, I guess.
Super helpful, Nick. And I really appreciate you and everything that you're saying. You know, one of the things that we've been talking to all of our clients about is about the 3-phase action plan. And, you know, I'm gonna kind of repeat some of this that some of you may have heard, some of you haven't, but phase 1 is where we're at right now, which is all about stabilization. Everything that, Nick, you're talking about is an opportunity for us as CEOs and business owners to stabilize our business, to stabilize our team. And this is so important. So step 1 right now during this time is to stabilize. That's where your focus needs to be, getting your house in order. The first thing you need to stabilize is yourself, getting yourself clear and straight. And that's why, Nick, I greatly appreciate you and everything that you've been doing and adding value to our tribe and our audience, you know, in our coaching program, but also, you know, here on our podcast, on your platforms for our profession. I know your videos have been being shared in many different groups that I'm also a part of. And so, you know, you've just been a huge value. So that's the first thing, is that get yourself and your house in order, get stabilized. Second is get your team stabilized. And again, this is all about stabilizing your team. That's what this is enabling you to do. Like Nick, you said it so well. You're kind of like a middleman for the government to be able to get money to the people. They don't want them going through the unemployment. They just don't want that. So this is your part to play, to be a play by the rules, be a good team player, and do your part so you can take care of the people. And again, as CEOs, that's one of the key responsibilities that we have, is to take care of the people and to lead them. And so stabilize your team. That's number 2. And the third, stabilize your active patients. And I know, Nick, like you said, you already have 2, and now you've got 3 things businesses really you've kind of been running. But I mean, you still have to stabilize your patient base, your current active patients. If your doors are closed, you need to be able to communicate with those people and be doing that. And so it's very important right now as a CEO that you and your team are stabilizing the current relationships with your active patient base, that you are nurturing those relationships, you're continuing to be there for them, being available for them, hearing what they've got going on, doing virtual consultations, doing telemedicine, being there for them in different ways and capacities. So now is the time to stabilize, recognizing who they are and being there, right? So number 2 is going to be reactivation. That's what's going to happen from this process. So this is, again, designed to help us get over this hump right now that we're going through right now. That's what this PPP program is all about, is to help us get through that. Then we're going to reactivate. We're going to get people back under care. We're going to do it in 2 different phases. Phase 1 is, who are our people that were active that have gone missing in action in the last 30 days? Those are the first people we're going to focus on when we reactivate. This will be in a few weeks from now. Then we're going to be going after, we recommend go after, who are the people that have discontinued care even in the last 12 months? This is a great time for us as CEOs to go back over who are the people that used to be here that aren't here anymore, and let's reach back out to them. Let's do a reactivation campaign. We're going to do that. We're going to cover this again in a future episode here in the podcast, but this is what you want to be thinking through as a CEO. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of this crisis, this pandemic crisis that we're all navigating through as owners. And then the 3rd stage is going to be mobilization. And again, this is about us getting back into the marketplace. And Nick, I know that you can talk a lot to this. And again, we don't need to talk about this now, but I do want people to know where they can learn more about you, because one of the things, Nick, you do a great job with is helping mobilize doctors in their social platforms, in their community, help them to be mobilized, to be out there, to be present, to be accounted for, to be that person that people look for when they're looking, they find you, right? So, Nick, I don't know if you have any, things you want to speak to on that, but at least just tell the audience, where they can learn more about you, your business, your services, Leverage Media. I know you're one of our success partners with the Remarkable Practice, and we're so grateful for you and your business. I know multiple of my clients and other colleagues of mine who are using your services and very, very pleased with it. So, Nick, just take a minute, maybe talk a little bit about what you do and how you can specifically and how you do support docs with their marketing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Most importantly right now, go to my Dr. Nick Silveri page, just because I'm putting out a lot of content specifically about this Paycheck Protection Program. So you can go there and just I've got, at this point, as of Sunday night, I probably got 30 plus videos on there. By the time this airs, I might have 40 or 50. I'm not really sure, depending on how things progress. But if you're interested at all in getting your message out in a more effective way, in a more efficient way, Leverage Media is my marketing agency for chiropractors. And we focus on exactly what we've been talking about, getting content out to who your ideal patient is and try to influencing them and creating qualified new patients walking through the door. And I'm more than happy to talk about that. But right now, I know people are really focused on just survival right now. So I'm trying to help out any way that I can.
Awesome, Nick. Well, I appreciate you. I'm going to finish with a quote from John F. Kennedy. He said this. He said, "When written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of 2 characters. One represents danger, the other represents opportunity." And I would say that right now, we are in a crisis, and there is a real danger that's out there, but there's also tremendous opportunity. As a CEO, one of our responsibilities is to be able to help people navigate through the challenges and dangers, but also help them see and seize the opportunity. Nick, thank you so much for your time today. Great for all of you who are our listeners, praying protection over you and your businesses, your families. And we're all going to make it through this. I truly believe. And if you need anything, please reach out to us. We're here to help. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic. And what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Now go and be remarkable.